had, but we have a few more people that joined us. So welcome everyone to, I think this is the 6th call we've had so far for the leaders. Let's just go around and do some quick introductions before we get started. Let's do it popcorn style this time. So basically, when you're done, you just call the next person and they'll call the next person until everybody's been introduced. So my name is Cindy Black. I am the volunteer campaign director for Whole Washington right now. And I also work full-time for Fixed Democracy First. So let's go to Masha.
Hi, you guys. Sorry, I was getting plugged in. My name is Masha. I am coming from West Seattle today and always, so far. What was the other question?
Just say your name and who you are, and that's basically it. I didn't.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing the key ingredient. Just excited to be here. Am I supposed to call out somebody next?
Yes. Did someone just do a screen share?
Somebody just came on.
All right.
But Georgia, I see you next, so come on down.
Yeah, thank you. Georgia Davenport. I'm the field director for Whole Washington, also a volunteer, and I live north of Spokane.
Pick the next person.
I already forgot that I'm supposed to call on somebody else. See how?
I was just trying to mix it up, a new way to do intros. So go ahead,
how about you, Blaine? Can you go next?
Sure. Hi, Blaine Jensen. I'm a volunteer and I live in Seattle. And we'll go to Sean. He's next on the list here.
Hi, I'm Sean. I live in the Central District of Seattle. I'm currently outside my porch, just soaking up the Washingtonian sunshine, and I'm happy to be here. How about you, Andre?
Hey everyone, I'm Andre Stackhouse. Normally live in Belltown neighborhood of Seattle, but I'm in Snohomish for the quarantine, and I'm a community outreach coordinator for Washington and a volunteer. It's great to be here, and let's go ahead and go to Holly.
Hi, I'm Holly Allen, and I am in Renton, and I am the treasurer, and I'm happy to be here. And I think
Who was that? I couldn't hear her. I can't hear you, Holly. I think your internet's slow. Is everyone else having trouble?
And Mark Pollock.
Sure, I'm Mark Prue. I live in Des Moines, and lately I'm watching my hair grow.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Mark.
Right. So
You guys even my introduction?
did it? Okay.
Okay. You know, I'm gonna have to. Okay.
Can you mute, Holly? Okay, go ahead, Mark.
How are we doing? Okay, so I'm Mark Prue. I live in Des Moines, volunteer, and been probably killing more time pulling weeds and watching my hair grow. So with that, I'll hand it over to Leah.
I'm Leah. I live in Vancouver, Washington, and I'm a volunteer for Whole Washington. And my husband, Steve Perkle's here. He's also a volunteer as well.
Pick the next person, Leah.
Pick Kim. Kim Harmon.
Hi, I'm Kim Harmon, and I'm a volunteer, and I'm in West Richland in the Tri-Cities area. And let's see, is it Michelle? Have we heard from Michelle?
Michelle, you there? Michelle?
Maybe she stepped away. Have we heard from Robin?
Not yet. Let's see. I'm putting on my video. Sorry, I'm shy. I'm Robin. I live in SeaTac, and I'm fairly new to Zoom. I finally had to just get my feet wet with it. And this would be good practice for the zoo themed preschool party I have to do with my daughter on Friday because it would have been their Z week. So that should be interesting. But yeah, hi.
And then Michelle, you want to try to go now? Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm Michelle, and I'm from Bothell. I'm a volunteer, and Hull, Washington is going to sort of become a focus for me now. It's going to be my mission, and I'm really excited. This is my first real interaction, and I'm really looking forward to it. So hi, everybody.
Great. And I think Ruth was the last person that hasn't gone yet. Ruth? Ruth, are you there? Okay, well, hopefully Ruth will join us here in a second. So let's go ahead. I don't think I missed anybody. Is that everyone I got? All right. Well, let's go ahead and Georgia.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Michelle. She sent the most beautiful red berets to me recently. We have about 11 of them that are on our website. So thank you so much, Michelle, for these gorgeous red berets.
Thank you.
Yeah, very.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's go ahead and give you a rundown where we are. Obviously, we're still in the middle of COVID-19. It's very unlikely we're going to be able to collect signatures this year. All the major festivals have slowly but surely closed down. Just this past couple of weeks, Fremont Fair canceled. All the Pride events, including the Pride Parade, which I'm not sure how they're going to do this, is going virtual. So how do you have a parade virtual? I'm trying to figure out how they're going to do that, but they said it's going, including the parade, is going virtual, which means we're not going to be able to collect signatures. I've also been a part of a group that's looking into alternatives for signature gathering during this time. We've reached out to the Secretary of State to see what they can do. The biggest issue for us is they can't change the timeline or the amount of signatures that we need to get because it would take a state constitutional amendment to change that. What I did find out is the Secretary of State can allow for something like online electronic signature gathering, but we have all the indications from the Secretary of State that they are not moving forward with that, and they are requiring a physical signature. The only exception that they're allowed to make is that you can mail the petition to someone, but they still have to print it out and mail it back to you. And in order to do 300 plus thousand signatures is cost prohibitive to be able to get that done in this time. So at this point, unless something changes, and this is the board voted on this at the last board meeting last week, is that we are going to suspend the signature gathering portion of the campaign for now, unless something happens down the road that we would reevaluate it and change that. But in the meantime, what we're planning to do is a variety of things. We want to put pressure on the governor to try to pass the Washington Health Trust. And I want Georgia to talk a little bit about the happy hours that are going a couple of times a week in order to put pressure on the governor. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other things we're planning.
Yes, so we've done, I think, 5 happy hours now, and a lot of the people on this call have been have participated in those happy hours. They've been really successful and a lot of fun. It's nice 2 times a week seeing some of the people that I'd want to be hanging out with if we could hang out. So it's a really good time. I really encourage anybody who hasn't participated to join us for the next one. It's Thursday at 3 p.m. We're doing it every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. I think probably next week we're going to switch to calling our legislators. I just got the news from Amber King, who's with Our Revolution Washington, that a legislator has agreed to introduce our bill in the next session. So that's amazing news. We've been looking for a new sponsor because every 2 years, bills have to be reintroduced. So yeah, like I said, healthcare happy hour is going great. So please join us for the next one on Thursday.
I think this really shows kind of some of the direction that we're going to go in this year during the COVID is putting a lot of pressure on legislators, the governor, your representatives, local, state, as well as national, because during this time, what we're going to see is a lot of people are going to end up losing their health care because they're going to lose their job, and then their health care is going to go away with it. We feel like we can use this opportunity to put a lot of pressure on legislators to try to get something introduced. This next session, like Georgia mentioned, we already have somebody introduced, and we can get other people to sign on as co-sponsors throughout this year. We can put pressure on them. We also realize that there may be some turnover come November with some new legislation. And so we want to keep a really good eye on that as people move forward, because if you see people running for office, we want to get them on board with this right away. So we want to target candidates, a local, state, as well as national legislators, to put pressure on getting health care for all. I think now's the time to put more pressure on them than ever. The happy hours that we're doing, I always think it's happy hours is getting earlier. It's like now it's starting at 3 o'clock, right? Used to start at like 5-ish. Now it's like moving up. But the thing is that we want to do more of those type of events. And eventually bring on maybe some legislators to speak about it. Maybe we're going to have some virtual events down the road and some other types of things that we can get a lot of good support from constituents in Washington state to put pressure on getting this passed through the legislation. If we're successful in getting enough legislators to get on board this, that we could pass it in the legislation or the legislative session next year, that would take a lot of pressure off us. But we need them to know we got an initiative lined up, ready to go if they don't. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. If they're not going to do it, we got the initiative right there to go. Masha, do you want to speak a little bit about some of the things that we've talked about for outreach and things like that?
So one of the projects that we're working to get nailed down, probably the first one that I'll be working on since I've started, would be the educational talk that I believe Cindy Jacobs will be kind of leading, talking with her nursing experience about just kind of information people should know, from a trusted source about anything in relation to the COVID and kind of the transition, because it's already, we're probably going to be doing this in the beginning of May. I know she's really busy right now with the city council, so they've got something on the books for the 28th for a press release, and then after that she'll be available for the talk. I know Georgia's going to introduce, whole Washington, what we do and kind of what the people, how they can get involved with us. I will be the moderator for this event. And I will be doing the ask for, just the community about getting involved, whether that is as a volunteer, if that's all they can do, whether it's financially, there's so many different ideas. I had a great conversation today with Andre about a really awesome idea he had with getting some corporate, sponsorship, we could say, and get some financial support there and, possible avenues with that, even though we are a 501c4. So that's kind of some of the things we've been working on. Some other things, Act Blue has done some really great webinars recently about just how to fundraise in times of COVID. So I've gotten some really great resources from that. I think the biggest takeaway is just really, when we're looking, I think in general with fundraising, you can always ask for $20 as a one-time gift, and that helps right now. We're always looking for sustainable giving so that as we're running this campaign for years, or for the next at least couple years, we have that finances to help us keep going. And I think a lot of times it's about looking at who has gotten involved already with our donor base and really reaching out to those individuals and finding an amount that really relates to what they've given before. So I really think that, if somebody's given $20 before, talking about what $25 can really do, and maybe in a sustainable monthly way. I think that, you know, when you give a reason to why, and before we were talking about with the petitions, when we thought we were going to be doing the signature gathering. And so, you know, it was like petitions are very expensive. So that's a really easy ask to, you know, we need X amount of petitions, which is a lot if we were going to get our signatures via mail right now. So there's a lot of different ways I think that we can get financial support and to really get, you know, the help we need to get a running start on this. But I definitely think just getting our name out is one of the biggest things. I feel like I know that we've been a pretty strong presence, I would say, on Twitter and Facebook. I know Instagram hasn't really seen as much traffic, but in the last couple of weeks I've definitely seen more traffic. Just I can see the numbers. So we're getting more people out there. Today we had a really great happy hour. We had somebody join us from Scotland, I believe it was, and so that was really incredible because it was somebody who literally just found us via Twitter post and was very supportive of our mission and wanted to get on this you know, happy hour and talk to us, and he was able to stay for the majority of it. But being in Scotland, it was a big time difference, so eventually he had to go to sleep. But that's just, it's really, I think the more that we keep getting our name out and just, you know, making the posts, you know, telling our friends, you know, sharing a personal experience of why this means something to you individually, I think that really connects with the people that you know. And you know, it's never too much to post. I feel like when you're posting on things like Facebook, everybody's got like, you know, so many friends who are posting so much every day, it gets lost in the feed. So, you know, you can post weekly, you know, a reason why this is important to you, or talk to people individually and really let them know what you're doing. And I think that's going to help us to get really that momentum. And I think some of the things we've been talking about is just getting a little bit more of a national group together. You know, there's obviously, we want to get this done, but sometimes it feels like we don't have enough support because we are such a grassroots movement. So making sure that we can align with other groups that are also in support of this, that have been doing this for a while, I think will keep helping us with that momentum. But I think individually what I've seen from this group so far, because I'm so new here, is so much passion and so much hard work that, you know, it might not always feel like we're taking huge steps, but I really think we are, as long as we keep doing this week after week.
Thanks, Masha. I think there's some good points there. With social media, some of the simple things you can do is you can invite people to like whole Washington. Just go into your Facebook, go to the whole Washington and say, invite friends to like this page. You can invite as many people as you want. I think there's some limit, they stop you, but pretty much invite your people to like that. Share social media posts, share Twitter posts, all of those. If you're on Instagram, or I think you even have a TikTok page now too, or TikTok account. I don't know TikTok. I know it's little videos, that's all I know. But I haven't even gotten to that. But I think the more we can reach out on those social media platforms are great. The other thing that Masha's talking about is raising money. One of the things that we need to do during this campaign this year is to raise money. My goal is, I would love to see us raise $50,000 before the end of the year, because it'll make it so much more easier for us to raise more money. The irony is, it's easier to raise money when you have some money. So if we had $50,000 sitting in the account, it's much easier for us to go to big funders and go, we got 50 grand, let's match that, or let's give us another 10 grand. So it's much easier to build on that once we already have that. So if you can give monthly, encourage other people you know to give monthly. I know Georgia, I want to give shout out to her, that gave $1,000 of her check, her coronavirus check. She gave $1,000 up. I have not seen mine yet, so I have no idea when it's coming. But thank you for that. And so if you're able to donate part of that, or encourage other people to do that, those little donations make a difference and they can really add up. So that's all I'll say about fundraising. The other big thing that we're going to want to do is continue to do outreach to the public, and I want to brainstorm some ideas today about how to do that. We already know about letters to the editor, social media, but let's have a little bit of a brainstorming session about what other types of things that we can be doing right now to educate the public and bring them on board for universal health care.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Actually, and I mentioned this in the event, if people wanted to bring poster board with them, I made a sign. Is it backwards for you guys?
No, I can read it.
Okay, all right, because it's, reversed on my screen, but I'm glad it's not reversed on your screen. Actually, I'm gonna stop the background because it's making, there we go. So, I'm just going to put this in my window. Unfortunately, where I live, it's a little rural, so I'm not sure how many people will see it. But if you live in a more urban area, this was a great way to communicate with your neighbors what we're trying to do. I have the website, Inslee's phone number, so people can call Inslee, and then they also know who's behind the campaign. So, and Masha was talking about social media. Once you make your sign, and I'll put exactly my script into the chat so that you can just, copy it, or you can, change it just a little bit. And once you make it, take a selfie with it in your window or whatever, and then tag Whole Washington, and maybe put our website in the social media post that you make, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's a good way to get the information out to people passing by and people on social media.
Great. And Holly, I'm going to call you out because I know you're doing something too. Can you share what you're doing, Holly, with your car? Holly? I don't know if she can hear me or not. Well, I'm going to tell you.
Hear you.
Yeah, good. There she is. Go ahead.
Okay.
Share what you're doing with your car, Holly.
So I have a die cut machine that can actually die cut decals for cars. So I made one for Amber last week, but I have made them in the past for people. So if you think of something you want on your car, just let me know, and I can cut that and I can mail it to you. They're really easy to put on. Just have to have a clean window. I put a few on Georgia's, so they're pretty easy, and I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, thanks.
I can't hear you.
So yeah, Holly, she has these decals that has Whole Washington on it in white lettering that's really easy to read, that as she's driving down the road, people can see that, which is really awesome. You can also get the magnets, the car magnets. You can actually, get those ordered online. And if you need graphics, I mean, eventually I think we should get some of those, but we have to get some money first for that kind of stuff. But the decals, Holly, I think, is willing to help people with the decals if you're interested in getting something for your vehicle and your car.
Right.
But the magnets or anything else advertising your car, your window, great ideas. Any other ideas of how to get outreach to the public right now?
So can you guys hear me okay?
Go ahead, Holly.
So last week, I heard in last week's meeting, I think it was, they were talking about doing the parades. And Cindy, you had mentioned some good ideas about the parades as well. And so I think that I had talked with Amber because I think she also had mentioned doing that. And I think that is like a really big thing right now. And I think that we should really focus in on doing that and have leads around the area be the lead of the parades, and it just gives people something to like be happy about. Who doesn't love a parade? And then also we can get our message out in our neighborhoods and in our own little cities. And you can always go and help in somebody else's parade as well, but try to get people in your parade you know, also. So that's something I've been kind of working on, just kind of making a list of things that that would need to be done to make that happen and stuff. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, Amber's not here, but she is helping me with this.
Yeah, that's something that some of the folks in Whole Washington have talked about, is doing kind of like car parades rather than actually getting out of your car. You would actually
Right, car.
put signage on your car and drive around your neighborhood, or you know, something like that. We wouldn't be blocking traffic unlike some other protesters. We would be actually being quite friendly and upbeat. A different kind of protest. We wouldn't have guns. Let's just say that. No guns in this parade. And then I want to address Roxanne's question. Thanks, Roxanne, for bringing that up. We did talk that a little bit about before you got on the phone about collecting signatures online. And unfortunately, the Secretary of State is not going to allow that to happen. There are some folks that are working on possibly for something in the future, but not in time for this year, unfortunately. There are some things that they can't change, like the number of signatures, when we have to collect them, the timeline. That all has to be changed with the U.S. state constitutional amendment. But the signature gathering, even though the Secretary of State could allow for alternative signature gathering, they're not going to do it. That's where they're at right now. Hope that answers the question. If something changes down the road, we can switch gears and move into that direction. But right now it's cost prohibitive for us to do it any other way than in person. Okay, so back to the thing a little bit about the parade stuff. Georgia, did you want to say something about that? Because I think you were one of the people that brought up that idea when we first talked about it at the board meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think that we can kind of do some build up, go through neighborhoods, do some honking, like Holly was saying, and then maybe we have like an event in May where we do a parade outside the governor's mansion in Olympia. So we just kind of build up, and then have this big event with, you know, people driving by the mansion with signs and honking. So I would like maybe just a show of hands of anybody who would participate or help Holly lead something like that.
I also want to say the most important part about a demonstration like this is to make sure you have good media coverage, because even if the media doesn't come out to cover us, we need to cover it and create content. So we also need to make sure we have people set up to film the event, you know, have everybody going by and you film it, and have a couple of different people do it in different places, because that's the stuff that we can share online and build up a lot of interest. So we have to, whatever we do, we got to make sure we document it and create content from it. Go ahead, Georgia. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. You can ask your question about who's interested again.
Oh, yeah. I think I saw pretty much everybody raise their hand and said that they would help out with that effort. I mean, it's pretty low key, doesn't take a lot, just make some homemade signs like I just made and drive around in your car. It's nice to get out, you know, and take a little drive these days.
And I'm looking at some questions in the chat here. Roxanne was asking about how do we fix that. Boy, there's no really easy answer to that one. We'd need a state bill. So we need our legislature, if they had an emergency session, they would have to get a bill passed in order for us to collect signatures electronically. If they did have an emergency session, my guess is this wouldn't be a high priority for them, but we don't know. We know there's some conservative groups pushing for it as well, but we're not sure. But that's kind of where we're at. There are some folks that are looking at it right now and trying to see what else we can do, and I'll keep you posted as we find out more information. Right now it's just up in the air. Everybody's scrambling to figure things out. Another question is by Sean. Sean had to leave. Sorry, but Sean, I didn't get to see that before I said goodbye. Is there a problem with taking information to the community health and dental clinics or trying to lobby them? They should be on our side. And that was from Michelle. So you're talking about taking like just information about universal health care, Michelle? Is that what you're asking? I want to verify your question there. Clarify it rather. Michelle?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
There were a couple of thoughts that I had along that avenue. I thought maybe we could gather signatures at a place like that. I thought that might be a place now we could leave forms to gather signatures. The doctors, the nurses, the patients, all of those people at those community health care centers, and I know about that because I'm on Medicaid, so that's where I go. Those people should be on our side. A lot of them, almost all of them, should be eligible to sign as signatories towards our initiative. I would think that might be a good place to start, even if it's just leaving information to inform people.
I know there's been a lot of connection to some of the healthcare providers. We have some of them on our board. The issue is being able to go collect signatures during the stay-at-home order. And even after the stay-at-home order is, you have to actually interact with people. That's one thing about signature gathering. You can't do it 6 feet apart unless the petition's way far away, and we don't have events like that. And the amount of signatures we'd have to get, we would only get a small amount from those facilities. It wouldn't be enough to get us there. That's the problem.
Okay.
Is we need big events to get us there, like the festivals and the parades and all those big gatherings, sporting events.
Okay.
And those are all the things that we can't do right now. That's the big issue for us. Yeah. There's only so many we can get at those smaller locations. It just, unfortunately, the numbers aren't there. But you're right, a lot of them would be on our side.
It is a good place to get information out to people who may have really limited ways to actually receive information.
True. And I think as we move forward, I think that's a good place to identify for spreading information. Hopefully we'll have some clinics willing to allow us to leave flyers, but I have a feeling we may have to be hitting up the patients outside.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Alice was just responding, I've tried this at work, but not okay if funded by state or if they take a side. That's what I was just saying. It depends on the healthcare facility. Okay. And then someone was asking about seeing if their dentist might be willing to endorse this, since we're covering dental coverage under this. We haven't really talked too much about how to bring dentists on board, but I'm wondering how they feel. Have we polled them at all, Georgia? Do we have any data with how dentists feel about this?
No, not that I know of. It seemed, I actually talked to my dentist about it, though I wore a whole Washington button to my dentist's office one time, and she was like, oh yeah, we totally need that. I should have said, well, can you endorse it? But I didn't even think about it at the time.
Well, but that's a good point. I think those smaller healthcare providers, the clinics Michelle was mentioning, some of them, of course, are corporate owned, but some of them a lot of dentists are private. So I think it would be a good idea to bring some of those people that have private practices on board that would actually benefit greatly by having dental care included in a healthcare plan. So we haven't really talked about dentists, so it might be a good group to start reaching out to. So somebody was mentioning postering with the whole
We just
weekday.
passed by.
We can get Sauger on board. He's our dentist.
We have a gentleman down here who's a big supporter of Bernie and whole Washington, and he owns 7 dental offices, and we could probably get him to
That's
sign
perfect.
up.
Yeah, Georgia, you've met him.
Sauger, he was at the state convention. He's our state committee man for Clark County.
Great. Yeah, if you doctors, dentists, nurses, technicians, anybody who works in the healthcare field,
okay,
very helpful. So people work in his office, hygienists, all of those kind of folks. Anybody that works in the healthcare system, if we can get them on board, that would help a lot. somebody, I want to go back to the postering. Somebody meant with the wheat paste. I was thinking of, old graffiti kind of stuff, Banksy kinds of things. I'm really a fan of guerrilla marketing. So if people want to make some posters and plaster them all over the place, I'm not going to stop you. It's expensive though. That's a problem with that stuff, is it costs money to print everything. And the wheat paste is pretty cheap, but the actual printing of posters, it's almost cheaper to get stencils and spray paint. That's way better and cheaper. So you cut out a nice stencil you can use over and over again. That's a Banksy technique. That's way you didn't have to like draw the thing the same. You can put it everywhere. So healthcare for all. Let's see it everywhere, All right, and then strategy and messaging. Oh, I wonder if we can come up, this is from Blaine, I wonder if we can come up with a strategy and message to reach out to former candidates who endorsed Washington but lost their race. They're still community leaders. Some of them might also be from physicians. Yeah, anybody that's, endorsed us before, let's have them endorse us again as a citizen, or if they're a community leader or have a job in that type of position, all the more the better. Someone was talking about 11 by 17 paper reams, not too bad. Stencils are a pain to cut. You got to get some good material. There's the stiffer kind of plasticky material that you can cut out that you can use over and over again. I used to work in art materials, so I know. It's Duralar film. There's some other names, Mylar, Duralar, works really well, and you can cut stencils out of them, and then they have this adhesive spray that you can put that keeps it flat so you can get a nice stencil, and then you just peel it off. I have access to some of those art supplies I can give you reference to. I know about some of that.
Cindy, with
yes.
With my machine, I can actually cut, I probably can cut the stencils as long as they're 12 inches, and then I can go as long as we need, but my machine is only 12 inches wide, so I probably could cut the stencils depending on the material that the stencils are made out of.
Yeah. I do want to mention though, illegally stenciling is illegal, and you could get charged, fined, arrested, so forth. So if you do it, just know that unfortunately whole Washington does not have the money to bail you out. Just know that going in. And basically, that's one idea, but oftentimes if it's a business that has those big boards, they wouldn't mind you necessarily putting some up there. Georgia?
So during Initiative 1600, some of you might remember, we did a lot of chalking. So we took chalk and we just, on the sidewalks, we wrote, and people love it. You wrote, do you want universal healthcare? www.wholewashington.org. And it's really simple, and you won't get in any trouble for that, and Whole Washington won't get in any trouble for that. So I highly recommend chalk.
And that's a good thing to do if you the weather's going to be, don't do it when it's going to rain the next day. You want it up there for a little bit. But that's something you can do after hours when a grocery store closes, and do it right at their entrance, or a healthcare clinic. You can do it right outside going into their entrance after they're closed, so you don't have any traffic. And then the next morning when people show up, there's a message right there, and the staff aren't going to wash it off. They're not going to bother. But especially outside grocery stores, might mean you have to go out at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night to do some of that, but you don't get in trouble with chalk, and it washes right off. Just don't do it before it rains, because then it goes away. I also have these pastels, these big giant pastels that I've used before too, that work wonderful. I think I might be able to get access to some of them. It's got higher pigment content, so they last a little longer. Oh, so those are some creative ideas. Anything else that, what is it? I'm sorry, another question here. What method is being used to get endorsement form filled out? Sending a link, or does the person have to email Whole Washington? Georgia?
Yeah, let me go ahead and do a screen share real quick so you can see where it is on the website.
Okay.
So we have an endorsements page that has all of our current endorsements. Are you seeing my?
Yep.
Okay. If you go to About Us endorsements, there's a endorse whole Washington page, and I'll put the link for this in the chat, and they can just fill out this form right on our website.
Cool. Great. Very easy. Did I miss any other questions? I know there's a bunch of stuff going on. Did I miss anything else? Yeah, big stencils work really well. Somebody mentioned those do work really well, the big stencils. But it's nice if you can do it at a place that's friendly and doesn't mind you doing that. Like, I know a lot of the businesses have boards up, and some people have painted over them. If there's a business that is boarded up and they want something friendly on there, it can be a nice universal healthcare for all little, mural or stencil or something like that. So other ideas for outreach to the public? Andre, want to share your idea?
Yeah, so this is more related to fundraising, although it is also indirectly related to outreach. And so I spoke with Masha about this earlier, but so I got this idea from the Seattle subway organization. And so I work at Microsoft, and they do matching programs for employees who give to charities. But they can't match organizations like Whole Washington because they basically are classified as political lobbying organizations. But the Seattle subways people found a way around this, which is basically that they instituted a separate institution called the Seattle Subway Foundation that is a non-political nonprofit. And it limits what they can do with the film. So they're allowed to do anything that would be classified as lobbying, but they are able to do things that would be, considered educational, or perhaps like community engagement. And Microsoft is willing to match funds donated to the Seattle Subway Foundation up to $15K per employee a year. And I think, Microsoft has very generous programs for this, but I think many companies who have similar programs would basically draw the line exactly there. So I was talking to Masha about it because she works in the fundraising, but I also think that there are, strategic considerations because, if we bring in more money, but it's money we can't use in the ways we need, then maybe it's not the greatest idea. So, I kind of leave that to people who more know what they need to do with the money. But I just wanted to make sure the idea was floated.
Yeah, you're talking about a 501c3, like Fixed Democracy First. We have a 501c4, which is Fixed Democracy First, then a C3, that's our education fund, where we can get grant money, tax deductible donations. Yeah, that is something Whole Washington could do, is set up an education fund, something like that, or a foundation, so they could collect grant money and charitable contributions. And yeah, you could just use that for educational purposes and things like that. You can do a small amount of lobbying, but it's very restricted what you can do with as a C3. But it is a way to get more money. Unfortunately, the money we need to raise is eventually for a political campaign. So I'm not sure how much that would help us in the long run for the initiative. I think it would help us a lot in the short run because I think there's money out there that would be available for the education, but we couldn't use that for the campaign. It would have to be totally separate. I think it's an idea to talk about. Georgia, has the board discussed that ever before about opening up a C3?
Well, it comes up every now and then because, a lot of the different opportunities there are out there are not available to 501c4s, like Facebook fundraising. When you get a notification that one of your friends is fundraising for a nonprofit, well, they don't allow, Facebook doesn't allow 501c4s to do that fundraising. So every once in a while it comes up, but it means that we would have to have a separate board for the 501c3. and separate articles of incorporation and bylaws. So while I'm totally open to that, I have a lot of work as it is. So the idea of creating a completely separate organization is a bit overwhelming to me. But if others wanted to start it, I'd have.
Yeah, I wonder, I guess I would question, and we'd have to discuss this more, what the value would be to the C3 besides collecting foundation money, you know, matching donations, C3 monies like that, grants and things like that. Because we could only use it for a short period of time because we'd be going right into the legislative session in January. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think there had to be more discussion about that. I mean, other thoughts on the phone here? We got a few minutes left. Anybody else have any other ideas of what you think about whether it's worth it for us to do a C3 or not, or should we just focus our energy on trying to get this legislation or the initiative passed, which is political? It just is. Don't all speak at once.
Well, I think when you put it like that, I would say I didn't really know exactly what we could use the money for, so I really wanted the idea to be, you know, floated by people that I know have the experience. It's nice to know that it's an option. I think it would be interesting to know if big corporations that already offer healthcare to their employees would want to support something like this. So I wonder if Andre has an in at Microsoft to know if people there would be very supportive. It's almost like, is it worth the effort, kind of, if like we have such a wonderful in to find out like what are they thinking about whole Washington in general.
And at C3 it's more if you're going to stick around for a long time. Like whole Washington is really all about just trying to get this passed and moving on. I mean, I don't think Georgia wants to do this forever. Do you, Georgia? No, I could tell. So the goal is to just get this passed and move on. So it's kind of a limited strategic focus, where C3 is ongoing. Like, you know, you're doing ongoing work in maybe healthcare and education public, which might be beneficial to do after the campaign, who knows. But I just question the value of doing a C3 now when we know our work is political to get this passed, especially if we're not going to be sticking around long after that.
I also think there's an educational component that you need to kind of prove that you're teaching people something. Like with ranked choice voting, you're trying to get people to understand the concept before you can get them behind it. I think everybody's pretty clear on what universal health care is, but there are still some wrinkles that you could really educate people about. But I don't think we have a time window where to set up a board and set up all of the things that need to be in motion for that, that it would be really worth it when we really need to focus on, you know, getting it done. But I mean, money would definitely help, but I don't know how much of that money we could use, you know, that wasn't educational, if we couldn't at least say that was mostly educational.
Well, we couldn't use any of it for the initiative, not even a penny of it. We couldn't buy petitions or, you know, get, you know, posters made or anything like that. All we could do was talk about what universal health care is, you know, what kind of programs are out there, things like that. You couldn't really even advocate for the one you want, which is difficult sometimes.
You could maybe be somewhat indirect about it, right? Like if it was called the Whole Washington Foundation, and that just builds awareness of the name of it. People look for one, find the other, that sort of thing.
The hard part is about once you get a C3, it really takes time to get it up and going to where you can be able to collect donations, where you are part of matching funds. And that can take a year or more before you're really up and going. So I kind of agree with Georgia. I don't know if it's worth our time and energy to put into that. But again, I think maybe we bring it up again at the next board meeting to discuss it, to see if someone might be interested in doing that. And like I said, if we want to keep the whole Washington thing going after we get the initiative and afterwards, it would make much more sense to get a C3 starting now than we would.
I just want to ask, like, let's say we assume that the legislative session won't work out and we have to go for the initiative, that's basically adding another year. Is at that point the time frame starting to make sense, or is that still too short?
It's not, because our whole focus will be on the initiative, and that's C4 work and political action committee work. It's not C3 work. So we wouldn't be able to do anything with C3 money, even if we got it. Say someone gave us 10 grand. We're like, great. Oh, we can't use it for anything except this. I think our fundraising efforts would be better to put it into the C4, into the political action committee down the road. So, and I'm just throwing all the ideas out here because it's more of a brainstorming. I think it's just a discussion.
I see Andre's point about getting that name recognition out, even if you're educating people on everything. But I think the longer time frame and enough people that want to get involved with doing that, you need like a good solid 6 people, I think, to make that happen. And those are 6 people that you might want, on your board doing the other stuff, the 4 stuff.
Yeah, I guess I'm more concerned about dividing our efforts. You know what I mean? If we're working on getting money for this part, and we're also having a separate group working on that, we're already having enough trouble getting money for one part. I'm just worried about splitting our time and our efforts. That would be my biggest worry about that. And if it's really worth it to us or not. Will we really get anything out of doing that? I don't know. It takes a while to get name recognition. We have to be around. Washington's already been around for 3 years. So
also, I will point out that to do the 501c4, I did have to file with the Secretary of State, write articles of incorporation, write bylaws, file with the federal government to become tax exempt, and I think that cost $500. It took me about 6 months to go through that whole process to where we did get a tax exempt status, although it's a 501c4. So tax exempt, but people who donate to us do not get to use that as a deduction or whatever. So it is very time consuming. Usually people use lawyers for it. I'm just very tenacious and didn't have money for a lawyer. So that's how Whole Washington was created. So it's like I said, it's a pretty time extensive.
I think that if there was a dedicated group of people that really wanted to work on that and make that happen, I'd say go for it, see what you can do with that. The hard part is we're so focused on trying to get legislation passed or eventually initiative we can't. That's kind of where our focus has to be. I know I don't have the time to work on getting a C3 together. Andre, if you're interested, maybe you can take the lead on that and maybe talk to some board members, but I don't know. You can check around with other people that run initiatives, but everybody that I know that runs initiatives, they don't have a C3 going along with it. I know when I ran WAMEND, when we were working on WAMEND on the 735, we never had a C3. We were always, under the C4 umbrella.
I think the concerns of splitting efforts is incredibly valid. So, I'm glad that we talked about it, but.
Yeah. No, it's good to have those type of discussions because, I'm open to anything we can do to improve the organization. So I do want to recognize it's 8 o'clock. So let's, any last minute comments here before we wrap it up? Somebody was about to say something.
I think I'm gonna probably wheat paste tomorrow because I'm not doing anything else, but I'll check with Georgia or somebody what I'm putting up so it's not too off.
Okay. All right. The hard part is getting things printed. I don't know how many print shops are open right now. I haven't been out.
I just do 11 by 17 paper.
Oh, that's wonderful.
On colored paper. Just like in the punk years in the 80s where we used to alternate the colors and just do black on colored paper.
There you go. That works just fine.
Yeah.
Anything else before we end for today? We are going to continue these calls every 2 weeks because we want to keep the momentum going and new ideas coming in. We're not giving up on the campaign. We just have another hiccup we have to deal with, and we're going to try to take advantage of the situation and continue to put the word out and hopefully get us universal health care. I mean, that's still our ultimate goal. We're not giving that up.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.